Episode 8 is fresh, so I held off before making my agent tier list. Now, what makes my tier list unique is that I'm genuinely going to give you opinions and not gear it towards professional play. I realized while studying other people's tier list, they tend to pull from pro play a lot. Like, for example, X got buffed, but not seeing enough pro play for me to recommend her. Pro play doesn't matter. For the average person, it just does not matter. Instead, I want to look at the statistics that are being collected in Radiant play, in Immortal play, but more importantly, in Gold play, in Iron play, give you guys real reasons as to why an agent is good or bad for you, the average player, to start grinding. Starting with the D tier, we're going to have to put Sage here. Now, I know it seems a little bit unfortunate, but Sage is a product of nerf after nerf. She just continues to get hit by Riot, and they never really picked her back up. She currently sits almost exactly at 50% win rate across all ranks combined. However, her KD on average sits extremely low, and her assist percentage isn't very high. And that just comes from the fact that getting off one heal per round isn't valuable enough when other agents, like Skye, exist. And the barrier is one of the only decent things in her kit, and it's very hard, especially in the lower ranks and the mid ranks, for it to be used effectively enough to recommend Sage across the board. So for that reason, she sits here at D. The next agent in the D tier category is Breach. With a 48% win rate and a 2.2% pick rate, he sits in the D tier for a lot of reasons. Now, if Fracture was still in rotation, maybe he could be bumped up a little bit, but even then, this video is not about professional or high tier play. So if we're talking about Gold, Plat, even Diamond and below, the team comp matters a little bit less, and this is more about a list. What if you want to master an agent? Well, Breach, you know, is probably not the best agent to pour all your hours into, because without cohesive team play, Breach's utility completely goes into the gutter. The odds of you cross-firing with your team, even not at your own fault, is extremely high. And even when we reach past Diamond, when it comes to the general meta, he isn't in meta anyway. So put those two together and he lands in the D category. Next is Phoenix, sitting at a 50.1% win rate and a 3.4% pick rate. This duelist needs some love. He's actually needed some love for a long time across the board, not even professional play, not just Iron, all ranks in between. Pretty much every opinion agrees on the fact that Phoenix needs a buff or a small minor rework, similar to what Yoru got back in the day. Phoenix is an agent that's simply only D tier because other duelists overshadow him too aggressively. The way he finds value is still quite selfish, and it's not strong enough for that selfish playstyle to justify his pick. Believe it or not, even though he is D tier, I wouldn't completely just throw him in the gutter. I don't think he's utterly terrible. Again, as a duelist, he just gets overshadowed too strongly by other duelists. Next up, we have Deadlock at a 1.1% pick rate and a whopping 49% win rate. Deadlock's buff didn't do much to see her move forward. Yes, it made her a little bit more usable, but usable doesn't necessarily mean good. Now, as a Sentinel, Deadlock suffers even more in the lower ranks when it comes to pick and win rate, as you need someone extremely competent in order to even find any value with her kit. Furthermore, while I don't want to dabble into pro play, something I will dabble with is something in Radiant. There is a player called BabyJ. Now, I am lucky enough to have played and know BabyJ a little bit, and the one thing is he completely grinded Deadlock to like Radiant rank #1, and if he says she's still absolute garbage, that should be enough to put her in D tier. So a little bit of note before ISO, this video was filmed before ISO's buff where his shield width got shrunk. He has a longer time to recharge his shield, etc, etc. These buffs are not enough for ISO, so my opinions moving forward from here all still stand and I believe are still relevant. So now ISO is ISO sitting at a 2% pick rate, which is actually double Deadlock's, but a 46% win rate across all ranks. That is abysmal. His KD sits below 1 as a duelist. Man, a missed opportunity. I often play ISO in my deathmatch footage just because how fun he is. Yet he cannot find value at all. He is basically nearly a throw pick, because if you want to really be egotistic and go crazy as a duelist, you should be picking the better version of ISO, which is Reyna. And I want to yap so hard about everything they can do to make ISO better, like some of his abilities being a little bit better for team play, maybe some of his self-sustainabilities being buffed a bit, but I'm not going to, because to some degree he needs a slight rework already. So let's just move on. That's everyone in the D tier, so let's bump it up to something a little bit happier. the C tier. Continuing the trend of terrible agents in the C tier, we're starting with Harbor with a 0.7% pick rate, lower than Deadlock, and a 46.4% win rate, also abysmal. Harbor is in a tough spot, and the only reason he's in C tier because based off of statistics across all ranks, he has a right to land in the D tier. The only reason Harbor can land in the C tier is thanks to certain maps being in the pool. For example, like Breeze. One of the only other controllers that can even help on Breeze is Viper, and you should always be picking her instead. But in case you can't, Harbor gets lifted because Breeze is such a terribly designed map that the only two viable controllers are as such. So it's a little bit unfair, and it's not even anything to do with pro play. It's quite literally a fact across almost every rank except maybe Iron or Bronze. You just need some basic ability to help map control Breeze, and map control, no matter planned or unplanned, is important across every single rank. So he gets dragged up a little bit and gets dragged up a little bit more as we head into the higher ranks like Ascendant Plus. People who become very competent at Harbor can make certain plays and create certain map situations that other agents cannot. So that's the only reason, but he's like at the bottom, okay? In my opinion, he's like a C minus, and my opinion was influenced by other players to basically just bump him up a little bit. Now, this next agent is a true C agent in my opinion, which is Fade. Now, Fade has a 1.9% pick rate and a 49% win rate across all ranks averaged. Now, when it comes to Fade, I actually think it is the high ranks dragging her down in this case. Like if you're a gold, silver, or even plat Fade main, I still think you're pretty viable. Like it's not like Fade is just a straight up terrible initiator, but once you hit Diamond, Ascendant, especially Ascendant Plus, we see Fade as an initiator kind of take a big dive, and you should kind of be playing other agents. This is where the meta starts kind of dictating the tier list, and it's about finding a sort of balance. I think she could hybrid, like mix into the B tier, but only a little bit in like gold or below. But overall, C tier is a good spot for Fade. Next up, we have one of the most controversial ones. Reyna hits the C tier. Now, I'm actually putting Reyna in a category because we don't care about pro play, so it makes it a little bit easier. At an 11.8% pick rate, so extraordinarily high, and a 50.3% win rate, Reyna plays for herself. Reyna plays for kills. I am not going to dive into it. You've heard it a million times. You pop the off, then it's okay. Like Reyna can find value. However, Reyna is not an agent I would main outside of being a straight up smurf, because Reyna just does not have the utility to help her team in case you have a bad game, which will happen. You're not a AI, bro. You're gonna have a bad game. This almost alone puts Reyna in D tier. However, for those people with no brain and all aim who maxed out that one skill they have in Valorant, Reyna can find a little bit of value otherwise, but she really just isn't the most recommended in general. I do stand by that. Next up, we have Gecko at a 3.2% pick rate and a 49.7% win rate. Now, Gecko is actually agent I like because he's very unique, he's fun, and if you really master him, he's got so much in his kit to make him an enjoyable play. And to be honest, he lands in C tier just because he's getting overshadowed by other initiators. Now, he's not the worst pick, he's not the best pick. This one does also scale with rank a bit. Even when we get rid of pro play, the truth is, you know, similar to Fade, Silver, Gold, Plat, Gecko mains can still find a shit ton of value, and it is completely more viable than when you get into Diamond. I keep saying Diamond. Diamond's this weird gray area. Sometimes Diamonds feel a lot like Plats, and sometimes Diamonds can feel a lot like Ascendants depending where you are. But Ascendant Plus, people just know how to counter Gecko way too effectively, while in like Silver, you throw out your little boy Wingman to start planning or diffusing. They like don't know what to do. They just fold under pressure, and Gecko finds his value. So again, high ranks bringing him down in my opinion, but C tier is not too bad for him. Next up, we have Neon at a 48% win rate and a 1.9% pick rate. Neon is kind of a forgotten duelist in my opinion. And here's the thing, Neon is suffering from a reverse problem. Now, instead of the high ranks bringing her down, I actually think it's the low ranks that can bring her up, which sounds insane, but it is in a very specific context. I'm putting Neon on the shadow between C and D tier because duelists do just in general need a little bit of a ever reworked. They're not the best class in Valorant at the moment. However, a competent Neon, like a silver or gold Neon, who generally dedicates, like we're talking about even just going to the training mode, going into custom to practice, generally and genuinely practices their movement and how to outmaneuver the enemies, will find some value. Because statistically speaking, the lower the ranks, the worse the accuracy. And if you can master that movement, you can create a lot of space while entering. Yet still, even at these ranks, even if you're a pro Neon player, your presence can still be ignored. You don't create that much situational presence, and she does get overshadowed by other duelists and initiators when it comes to taking space and taking sight. So I'm gonna put her like C minus, like she's between D and C in my opinion. She can find value, but it's just a little bit too niche to recommend. Now, the final agent in the C tier category is Astra with a 1.2% pick rate and a 49.6% win rate. Astra has such a big, fun, diverse, and unique kit. One of the most unique agents in Valorant. But still, finding value with Astra is too difficult basically across most ranks, and even more so in solo play. Really, solo play brings down Astra like crazy actually. It's her biggest nerf, that playing her in solo queue is far too difficult, and even duo queue is not valuable enough. Like, you need to be playing Astra in a 5-stack and be a very competent Astra in order to find value, which at that point we're basically talking as if pro play, right? 5-stack is still the very niche minority of Valorant players. So in my opinion, Astra hits C just for her difficulty to play her effectively. So much is going on, it's too easy to get overwhelmed, it's hard to manage her. Now, if you're an Astra pro and you master this agent, you still haven't done too much, because again, you need a competent team who's communicating to find her value. So for that reason, she is the final agent in the C category. As we get up to the B tier, the first agent we're going to be talking about is Chamber. Now, Chamber was a little bit of a hard one. I kind of wanted to put him C since we have seen him dwindle after those initial nerfs, but he kind of gets pulled up by very good aimers, to be honest with you. So at 3.8% pick rate and a 48.8% win rate, his stats aren't the healthiest. Yet Chamber can still find a lot of value, and the release of the Outlaw technically buffs him a little bit. The fact you can double shoot and snap out of there is very, very valuable. Still, he does have a presence, and a good chamber main using both his headhunter as well as his tour de force can find a lot of value in just holding down areas. Peeking and fighting a competent chamber is always scary. Sure, his trademark is just too weak for a sentinel player, and if you're a sentinel main, this is not the only agent you should be playing, because as a sentinel, he doesn't have enough oomph to really recommend. And while all agents scale with your skill on that agent, since Chamber's abilities are mainly gun, the aiming aspect is extremely high. You're a good aimer, Chamber can basically be a B tier, otherwise just don't play him. Now, the next agent in the B tier is Brimstone. Brimstone with a 4.4% pick rate and a 50.4% win rate. Brimstone has his strengths in his basic abilities. The fact that he's kind of bare bones but still has high value is very important, right? A basic molly can be used in multiple ways, right? Map controller, post plant. When it comes to his ult, same idea. Map controller, post plant. When it comes to his stim beacon, quick rotates or very quick initiations with your team, W. When it comes to his sky smokes, absolutely fantastic, easy to use, hard to mess up. He's just a good agent. To be honest, he's actually such a solid B tier. I'd put him in B+, not just because he has a good kit. He's boring as hell, but he's just reliable. He's extremely reliable and easy enough to use, where your inconsistencies as a human playing Valorant don't shine nearly as much while playing him. The next agent is KO with a 2.1% pick rate and a whopping 45.9% win rate. One of the lowest on the list, by the way. KO has every reason to be lower than B tier, yet still his kit can consistently find value, and for that reason he gets put up a little bit. His ult is just AoE, hard to mess up. You pop it, you found value. His knife, just learn some basic knife lineups and good spots and it can find find value. A flash, very versatile. The better you learn how to flash, as in you're willing to put hours in for lineup, you can find a ton of value. And his fragment, like any simple molly, can be post plant or map control. Overall, KO is in a sense similar to Brim when it comes to he can just be reliable, but you do need to put genuine hours into him. If you're not a good KO main, then his value tanks hard. It's like Brim, but you need to actually put in a lot of skill. When you're good with his abilities, sure, you can still find value even if you're not fragging out and you're having a bad aim day, so his kit is there. However, his win rate being 45% really comes from the lower ranks. Irons, bronze, silvers playing KO and not putting in the time to really learn his abilities. He can find consistent value, but you gotta put in the time. The absolute last agent we're gonna be talking about in the B tier is Yoru. Now, Yoru is like a B minus minus minus. Basically could have slipped into C tier, but my bias put him into B tier as a diamond Yoru one trick. At a 47% win rate and a 2.1% pick rate, I think I'm going to be making an argument that most people disagree with, and that is completely fine. I think it is the low ranks, not the high ranks, the low ranks that pull up Yoru's value in my opinion. Now, you're used to seeing red, you're used to seeing extra, you're used to seeing the top dogs dominating on Yoru in Radiant. They're just geniuses and can outplay the minds of their enemies. But you take that same concept, you learn from red, you learn from Exter, you understand what's making his ability strong, and you put it in the mid-tier ranks, because that's maybe asking too much from an iron or silver, but gold, plats, you put it there, and holy, I was stuck in gold when I was playing Sky because Sky is apparently the best agent in S tier. I switched to Yoru. Bam, I got to diamond. Why? Because I was playing Yoru for a long time. I went into customs. I learned him very well. And when you start mind messing with your enemies in that rank, they have no option other than to respect it, because they are not pro players, because they are not Radiants, because they are not communicating with each other nearly as much. Your presence scares each player individually. A fake TP, a fake clone, a real clone, a clone that you cannot see that's making footsteps, all the sounds messes with them like crazy. They succumb to pressure a lot easier. Similar to my wingman example earlier, the lower the rank, the more likely you can mess with their mind. And even as you climb the high ranks, someone I had a great respect for and became a friend of mine, Nosy, he was a professional player at one point. He one-tricked Yoru for a long time, and he told me he believed Yoru was one of the best agents to solo climb to the top, because the more you master him, the more his value becomes a lot better substantially, right? When it comes to lurking, map pressure, and presence, he's almost unmatched. People have to respect it. Even a Radiant hearing a fake TP now has something in his mind that cannot be missed. Unless they check it 100%, it is now a pressure point in the game. However, no matter what, he's BC because you have to get good. You either get good at him or his value goes even maybe D tier. So yeah, get good or go home kind of thing. Now, as we head into the A tier, the first agent we're gonna talk about, welcome back into the top dogs, Cypher. With a 50% win rate on the dot and a 7.2% pick rate, Cypher has seen some more and more play. Now, a big reason is 1, Killjoy got nerfed, and 2, the map pool is a little bit more in his favor. Cypher does take a lot of skill, but man, if you get good at Cypher, the amount of control you have in an area, or especially a site, is insane. 1 out of 2 of the only true sentinels in my opinion. Cypher is one of them, a GOAT in Valorant. Even when he wasn't good, people still wish he was good because like he's very unique and he adds a new layer to Valorant since the beginning. He's one of the agents that makes Valorant less checkers and more chess. Next in the A tier is Jett with a 9.2% pick rate and a 49.7% win rate. Jett has always been strong. Basically, after her series of nerfs, she just went from S into A tier. Jett is still one of the best snipers in the game. The Outlaw inherently is also a buffer. Bam bam, dash out of the way. She can initiate, she can defend, she can hold down a site, and she can still quickly escape, all while still having the potential, like Reyna, to just solo carry. The better you get at Jett, you'll see substantial rewards for that skill level. Now, you do need high skill, especially in terms of aiming. You gotta learn how to initiate, but yep, you dash into site, you get those smokes down, and across all ranks, you've now created a presence. The second sentinel that I actually consider a sentinel, the only sentinels in the game, is Killjoy in the A tier. Killjoy dropped a little bit from S tier. That is a little bit due to her nerf, but also just map pool and Cypher getting better. Now, she is a little bit better and a little bit more consistent than Cypher overall. It's also just her abilities are more automated than Cypher. A little bit more can happen even if you're not playing perfectly as Killjoy. And across all ranks, especially silver, gold, and plat, she gets brought up a bit. Just again, like a silver playing Cypher, more likely to mess up than a silver playing Killjoy, which will find more value consistently. So in my opinion, she is better than Cypher by quite a bit if you average out the rank. With a 4.2% pick rate and a 49.8% win rate, her consistency is truly there. Hold down a site, help take a site, help her post plant is just absolutely insane. She's a valuable character no matter how you put it. The very last in the A tier category with a 4.6% pick rate and a 49.6% win rate, Sova makes it into A tier. Sova just has a lot of consistent value, which is kind of what you're getting here when we get to the high-end agents, the top tier agents. It's about their consistency. It's about their ability to both, frag out and play for themselves, but also play for the team. His info is ridiculous. Lead with the owl drone or the dart and have the other as backup. And of course, you're usually using the recon bolt more than once per round. His value is clearly there, and we know you can improve his value by getting better at him. Infamously known for his lineups, we know that Sova has a high skill ceiling. All right, we finally made it. S tier, let's go. All right, starting with probably the best controller in the game at the moment, Viper. Viper hits the S tier with a 3.1% pick rate and a 49.5% win rate. Viper's only real hindrance to some extent is you should get good at her, but even then, not like, as long as you learn basic wall lineups, you're not going to mess up the wall often. Toxic screen is just way too valuable. Viper's pit, of course, learning basics. Like if you learn the preliminary basics of Viper, she's not like dead brain easy like Brimstone, but if you just put a little bit of time into her, you can get good at her pretty rapidly and then find maximum value as you improve through the ranks and just get more game knowledge, basically. Like she plays for game knowledge pretty hard, and she does get pulled up a little bit by the high ranks because she's like a must pick on Breeze, and the way that like Diamond Plus or Ascendant Plus play with their team and need that map control and need that value brings up Viper immensely. Now in Iron or Bronze, it might be better to play Brimstone than Viper, but even then, down there, you learn the basics of a toxic screen. Iron Bronze aren't respecting that damage they take when they rush through it, and they can get sprayed down. So overall, Viper just finds consistent and high tier value. This next agent literally cannot be dethroned, and it is why she's my backup agent, Skye. So Skye was placed S tier before the major nerfs. This video was already in the making. After her major nerfs that removed the rechargeable flash, she definitely got a huge hit as an initiator. In my opinion, still stands of being one of the strongest agents in the game. However, I will put a contingency. I think she is closer to A tier now, maybe just a solid A tier, but it will scale with rank a lot because in the mid tier ranks, she still provides so much value and just gathers so much info. So just take this next opinion with a grain of salt. She's now A/S tier depending on the rank. With a 5.8% pick rate and a 49.1% win rate, her value is just crazy and it doesn't stop. Doesn't matter how they nerf her. Like, you are talking about the only flash in the game that also just gives you straight up info. It can be curved. You use two of them and then you get it again during the round. You just keep getting info and info and info, and you blind them and then info. You want more info? Throw in your dog. Oh, that dog doesn't just give you info, it also stuns them. Like, the amount is insane. Your team just gets raisinated and they're all low. Bam, regrowth. Heal them all at once, just overshadowing Sage like crazy. And then you just want more info because you didn't have enough with all the first two abilities. Throw out your Seekers. You get the point. She also has a high skill ceiling, like a very high skill ceiling, and getting good at her isn't super easy, but it's not like as hard as it is with Yoru or some other duelists. So you can get decent at her pretty quickly. You can master her over time. You can dominate in Iron and you can dominate in Radiant. Probably the best agent in the game, Skye, ladies and gentlemen, for obvious reasons. Next up, we have the best duelist in the game, which is actually Raze. Now, Raze is very good. 49.3% win rate and a 6.4% pick rate. The only thing is Raze, like the better you get at her satchels, the more value she finds, because unlike Jett, like learning to dash in or updraft dash in is more consistent for taking space. So there's a small contingency on Raze's S tier, which is just get good at her satchel so you can take the space you need to. Double satcheling into small areas like lamp on bind in order to take space can be very important, and you're going to need to learn how to use her a little bit more. Otherwise, Boombot, we're talking about info and damage. Showstopper, very inconsistent, sadly. Like, even though people make fun of it for being inconsistent, it just goes to show she's S tier because when it does work, it works very well. You're just deleting someone, you have a freaking bazooka. Her nade in high ranks, take control, in low ranks, frag out. Overall, a solid pick. I still prefer Jett across all ranks equally, you know what I mean? But S tier because of general consensus with the high ranks, I'll slip it. Raze is fantastic. It's hard to disagree with them, so she's here in S tier. Last but very much not least, we have Omen. Yay! Omen with a 9.6% pick rate and a 48.9% win rate. It's great to see Omen in S tier, and it's great to see a lot of people agree across the board with it. Omen gets pulled up in solo queue, so he's just a great controller for solo players. Like, you need to do a little bit of carrying. You need to mess with the enemy's mind, you know, like the whole Yoru example. You need to mess with the enemy's mind, and you still want to get those smokes down and help your team out. Omen is a great pick. It's like I said, like especially even silver to like plat, you're talking about learning to fake TP, learning how to like study some of Dr. Freeze's like sketchy tactics that messes with people, and you're finding a lot of value because golds are gonna have to respect that you ulted. They don't know where you are. They're very bad at predicting it, right? Fake TP, you know, all that type of stuff is gonna be a lot easier to pull off on the lower rank. So learn Omen, learn him fast, and now you have a controller that you can play for your team and still frag out. He has a ton of value. Now that's my tier list. You might disagree. I think I'm going to get some flack on certain agents, but hey, from a Diamond's perspective, who's trying to keep it averaged out from Iron to Radiant for the general consensus of players with multiple opinions, I hope you enjoyed. It's a little bit of a longer video, but if you made it to the end, I appreciate you.